Telling you what, this is the best tank I've ever found for filling up anything. You just put the nozzle down in there, push this button. No safety Sally stuff or nothing like that. I got a smaller one I use for my chainsaw. Hard to beat. And I'm not sponsored by this company either, so don't go thinking that either. It's made by Surecan. I got this at Lowe's, but I think they got them on Amazon as well. Sure makes it a lot easier. Only way this will be easier if I was taller, standing on a milk crate. Previous video a few weeks ago, somebody asked what kind of grease they should put on their sawmill, and I can't remember if they had a Norwood or a Wood-Mizer, Timber King. I can't remember what it was. Really doesn't matter at that as far as that goes. But what I use, and this is not probably the best stuff to use, but it works for me, and this is not the only thing to use, is Lucas Oil Red and Tacky right here. And I think you can get this on Amazon. This stuff I'm talking about, I'll link to Amazon below if you can find it there. I get this up at a feed store. It's about 2 miles up the road. And this is high temperature grease. And even though a lot of the fittings or the Zert fittings on the sawmill here are not high temperature by no means, it's not going to hurt them by putting high temperature grease on them. And the reason I do high temperature is there's some Zert fittings on the tractor that are high temperature and some moving parts. And I'd rather use the same grease on all my equipment here, on the lawnmowers, the New Holland, the Mahindra, you know. I don't want to switch it up. I just like to have the same thing for everything. So the high temperature grease, it's just a little bit more expensive than the regular grease, maybe 75 cents or something like that. But I advise on getting it, because if you got something that's, you know, that heats up, it's good to have this high temperature stuff and just use it for everything. Lucas Oil, Red and Tacky. Good stuff, can't beat it. Let me finish up greasing the mill. I got a few more fittings here on the hydraulics and the loading arms. And we'll get this white oak sawed up and get it out of the way so we can make room for the monster walnut. Actually, before the walnut, I need to saw up some stickers, because I have no stickers right now to put the walnut on when it comes off the mill. So as soon as the white oak's finished, we'll do those stickers. And I probably got about 8 boards to saw into stickers. We'll talk about that in a minute when I put them on there. And this white oak's going to be a 6x6 like the other one was in the last video. We'll make those into runners probably next week to bring logs in on the mill. And as soon as that's done, we're going to get the sawmill ready. I'm going to check my outriggers real good and a few things like that, because this walnut is extremely heavy. Make sure everything's good and safe before we start loading it up here on the mill. That is a heavy log, let me tell you, super heavy. So let's get to it. Another handy dandy tool that'll make your life easier is a battery powered grease gun. This one's made by Dewalt. I think it's about $200 with the battery. It sure does make it a lot more enjoyable when putting grease on your machines and a whole lot faster. So right here on the blade tension arm, there's a little grease zert right there as well. Didn't take very much on that either. Now this is a pretty small log, and I'll be lucky if I get a 6x6 out of it, but that's what I gotta have. It needs to match the other one perfectly. And it's the right length. I'm just hoping it's big enough to get a 6x6 out of it. Diameter down here on the operator end, 7.5 inches that way, and the other way it's about 8.5. I'll be cutting it close, guys. I'm telling you, I'm gonna be extremely lucky to get a 6x6 out of this. I may have a little bit of lane in it on that small end over there. I can live with it. 9 inches down here. So I don't think it's really going to matter which way I turn it as far as sawing it, because the diameter is pretty consistent. 8.5, 8 inches. I don't know. So what I'm going to try to do is take a small cut off the top of it and skim off that bark, flip it 180 degrees and come down till I get my 6x6 dimension, and then go from there. And that'll tell me a whole lot right there when I get those 2 cuts over with on how this timber is looking. So let's get the mill going, make some sawdust here and see what we can do. hoping for a 6x6. We'll see what happens. Those first two cuts went pretty good. We got our 6-inch thick timber here. So hopefully I'll be able to flip this up on its side now and just barely take off a little bit of bark right here, then flip it over and hopefully get our 6-inch cant. And if something happens and it's not going to be a 6x6, if it's like 5 3/4 square, then I'll probably just put that other one up here and make it 5 3/4 also. And also, to talk about that debarker for just a minute, this is an ideal log for the debarker. Those crotch logs, when they flare out, the debarker kind of gets, caught up in there because it doesn't spring out the other way. And it's kind of aggravating on the crotch logs to use it, but on these nice straight logs here, that debarker works perfectly. And I get a lot of questions about the debarker, and I'm not real familiar with it yet. This is the first time I've ever had one. And this is the maybe 5th log I've sawed on this machine, so it's brand new to me. But if you're interested in that, there's a guy over near Asheville named Charlie. He's got a YouTube channel, I've talked about it before, called Charlie and Sarah. He done a video a few weeks ago about the debarker. He runs an LT50. It's a pretty good video. He talks about the debarker and how he runs it on his LT50 wide. And it's pretty much the same debarker that I have here. I'm pretty sure it's the same one. And I think we have the same size diesel, except his is the LT50, so his hydraulics are a lot faster. But I'll leave a link down below to his video on the debarker. He talks a lot about it in depth, and I've watched it several times actually as I try to get used to mine. So anyways guys, let's flip this thing up on its side and see if we can get our 6x6. I think we'll squeeze it out. We'll see what happens. Well, we pulled it off. A little bit of wane on the sides right here, W-A-N-E. If you're not familiar with that term, that means there's a little bit of bark on a board. But no big deal, because this measures even 6x6, which is what we wanted. And I'll probably turn it so the wane is on the top side anyway. But like I said before, these beams, we'll go ahead and do the Shashugibon. I'm probably saying that terribly wrong. And we'll put some linseed oil or something like that on top of it, because these are going to be in the ground. That's what we're going to use to roll the logs on, is to bring them into the mill. Because I have so many logs to saw up this summer, guys. I had a friend of mine bring me 38 while we was in Disney a few weeks ago. A lot to do here. And these are 10 footers. I'll square the ends of them up with my skill saw. I got one of those Sasquatch saws. I'll show you guys that later whenever we get ready to burn these. But one thing I want to do here, where was that? So the thing about it, sawing out here at night, it looks great for the cameras. Man, the bugs, they love these lights. They eat me up out here. But one thing I want to do here before I take this off the mill, I'll raise it up with these log levelers on both sides, get it off the mill a few inches, and I'm going to get rid of this bark right here, because white oak is very rot resistant. It's better than pressure treated wood, in my opinion. Lasts a long time on the ground, and that bark will be its only Achilles heel, I guess, because bark is where the bugs will be, and they'll get in there and hang out and mate and all that stuff, and before you know it, you got a million of them in here on this outside bark. And get rid of that bark, you don't have that problem. With this being on the ground, they'll definitely get in there.